We're here with Jonah Michea Judy, just taking a break out between the live performance and what we're going to do next, which is hear from the brand new album, Grace Hangs. So if I look at the work of yours that I've seen, and it's only a percentage of your work that I've seen, we're going from very delicate, almost whispered music to tear your face off stuff. And we haven't even gotten to this group, Hello Clarice out of LA, that you're a part of. You were also covering Kate Bush before it was cool. Let's acknowledge that right here.
Thank you. I appreciate the props because I have had her vinyl since I was 4. So
I do want to get into what is new. Well, actually, let's start with you've gotten enough years under you. Are the songs just being released in small batches, or are you really conceiving of maybe not album, but the EP as being a unit?
in general, yeah, I have been playing for 20 years now. I got this guitar 20 years ago in 2003. And I'm thinking of 3 of your questions at the same time.
I'm asking 3 of them at the same time. It's not your fault.
We'll try to tie them all together. Which one do you want me to answer first?
When you're releasing material, when I see a new release of some kind from Jonah Michea Judy, am I getting just the latest stuff, or am I getting a concept, even if it's an EP?
You know, it kind of depends. I have lost count of how many songs I've written. I have various levels of archives that go from like working on refining to release in some way down to like my thousands of files of like scrap bucket hooks and stuff that I'll keyword in my phone now, which I'm a little smarter about after like generations of voice recorders that wouldn't go in the computer. And, before that it was on tapes. I recorded my first album on tape, and actually your whisper quiet to tear your face off thing was a problem for the engineer on the label in Asheville that tried to record Milk Sync for me. And that's part of why I did it on cassette, to have some more headroom. And I ended up recording that album acoustically in like 3 different unfinished houses. And I did the smallest house for the quietest songs, and I did the medium-sized house for the medium ones, and where it got really loud I did the really high ceiling one. And I always have to tell people, this is going to be somewhat dynamic, and I try to preserve that when incorporating a whole band like on this new EP. And I think we've done just a nuanced and beautiful way of like keeping the dynamics in but having it shred. And part of switching to electric guitar is having electricity. I've been an underhouse person on and off for my childhood and most of my 20s, and so that was a parallel struggle. I used to do like set the laptop on top of the car and put videos on YouTube, and now I have like a studio set up.
And you have an outlet in the wall.
Yes, which is very important. I did play electric guitar on generator for a little bit, but it's interesting because it makes the voltage dirty, and it's like this whole other experience that adds to the sound.
So you're getting this sort of greasy sound.
Yeah, you get like the what's going on for the generator in the guitar amp somehow.
Wow.
So I ended up like trading my first electric guitar when I was on the road on the East Coast for a little PA, because that just made more sense, because I usually play acoustically. But yeah, if I had the budget, I might have 1,000 songs out instead of 90.
But this album, this EP, Grace Hangs, there is a really different guitar presence going on here. Because I'm thinking back to some of the Pull Your Face Off stuff, and it was not metal exactly, but it was like in the heavy rock category, I'd say. And what we're hearing now, I heard echoes of Nirvana in a lot of this, and maybe it's the way vocals and guitar play off each other.
Yeah. Well, I've certainly been listening to Nevermind since I was 12. So that's a part of it. Also, part of, I think, living through losing so many famous, beautiful, die young musicians, Chris Cornell and Lane Staley and Janis Joplin and Jimi Hendrix, like Amy Winehouse, it just goes on and on and on. Um, Part of what that leaves, I think, in the culture and in me is like this craving for like, hit that spot for me with a record that's not dead and 20 years old, And so I've been trying really to do that since I started playing, but I needed to build the skills as an engineer and the skills as a band collaborator and the skills as a composer and the skills to understand how to capture a dynamic performance and have it still hit really hard.
Hmm. Well, you had a really interesting collaborator on Grace Hangs. Is that you got to work with Lily Mays?
Yeah. Lily and I met at her father's memorial concert I was filming and taking photographs.
So this was the show Lily and Eric McFadden
Hmm.
and a few other serious guitar heroes of the day were
Yeah,
there.
over at the Outpost.
Yeah.
And the second I walked in the door and saw her playing, uh, I knew, I'm like, I gotta have this person on a record. Like, we're gonna figure this out as soon as the show's over. So she's been in my mind, and for this record, I had like a little budget to just track some drums at a studio, and I started over at Empty House, and I sent Matthew the guitars and vocals to Clicks, just as demos for the studio, and I said, let's do drums for this in your studio, and he hooked me up with Chris Kirby, who he says to me, this guy's got double bass chops for days, and that's what this record needs. And I'm like, yes, thank you for understanding where I'm trying to get it to. And
Double bass meaning you're using an upright?
Meaning on the drums, double kick.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, Kirby's really good and can play anything quickly. And the main part for me is that when I'm with a drummer, this is what it sounds like.
Okay.
With a drummer who I can communicate with and who can
Mm-hmm.
adjust, we only rehearsed the songs once for 2 hours, and then we tracked in 4 hours, and we had the whole EP down with like multiple takes. So
Is it when you're out of your own space as a soloist and you're bringing the other band members into it? Do you have to? I've heard other musicians sometimes say, "I have to bring them into my house. They have to learn to live in my house and not their house." And there's a stage of translation they need to go through. Is that something that you've experienced, or are you able to show them where the song is going just really quickly?
with this group, everything clicked because I think we were all on the same page about what the songs were, which is something that you can get to through a lot of different routes of communication. I've collaborated with a lot of musicians over the last 20 years, and um, part of it is letting go of ego and saying, how are you changing this and how is it going to change, and who are you and what are you putting into it? And that just showed up pretty naturally between the three of us. Some people have language for how to get the music where you're going, and some people don't. And, I'm pretty specific about what I wanted. So I had like Google Docs running for the different productions on the record. And when we were mixing, I was working with Nick Peterson, who's worked on like a bunch of Melvin's stuff. We met through Chris Stamey when I was recording in North Carolina, and
This is Chris Stamey of DB's fame, and okay,
yeah, who was one of the panelists at South by Southwest.
right.
And I recorded a record with Chris, and he sent me to Nick for like a little mixing tweak back in like 2009, I think. And he's a really surgical mixer, Nick. So I know that like I can just do a Google Doc note for him with timestamps, and he's just gonna knock it out in half an hour or whatever. And so we all worked really efficiently. Lily tracked her stuff over in Los Angeles. I kind of just left these like salad beds for the solos as we were doing the thing live. And I knew we needed to do it live because I did a rock album in 2020 with a long distance drummer. He goes in the studio first and I'm overdubbing everything. But I like on this record how you can just feel it sway.
Hmm. Hmm. Let's talk about where these songs are coming from, or where they're going, or where they're sinking. I I got the distinct sense that there's something sort of subterranean. There's maybe even some sort of mythology going on in some of these songs. Um, that it's below the surface, and I think there's a line in Ankle Deep where you say, "I'm more than the weight."
Yeah.
Okay.
Subterranean is definitely what's going on. um, early in my music, I was really using metaphor as like a safe space for trauma. Like if I encrypt this enough,
Right.
then I can look at it without looking at it. Um,
But I'm sure as the artist, you can kid yourself and say, well, that's how I communicate and save myself, right? If I spin a
sure.
metaphor, those folks can make it what they want to.
Yeah, it is more of a conscious choice these days, like what I'm leaving underground and what I put on top so that
Mhm.
people can listen to it. Which is a skill, like my early stuff is super raw and intense, and I don't think a lot of people can sit with grief in that way. But I think that's part of how the band helps this record. It's basically the same stuff. I mean, So Sure is a song that I wrote most of in 20 years ago, and I get chills as I'm talking about it. But at the time I didn't have the skills to say how do I make it less this and more that, and I would sink into that emotional process. That's part of why I like to not mix my own stuff, because I will end up sinking with the songs.
But there's delusions of grandeur, we're at sea, literally. Or it appears that we're at a ship at sea, and the sea is somehow pulling this character down, and in the next one, Ankle Deep, obviously it's like the mud or the garbage even is like there's this force underneath the human that seems to have an effect. Is that just me making stuff up about your work, or is there's some sort of mythic element to what's going on here?
Well, Delusions of Grandeur is about a lot of stuff. So it's interesting making those decisions. It's about control dynamics on a group scale and the individual scale, based on, you know, various relationships I've had and the relationship that we all have with each other as an ecology for metabolizing all of the violence in the world. Specifically for me, it's this moment, delusions of grandeur. It's like, and Captain takes the reins to seize the sway. It's like when an individual or a group of people are experiencing grief and trauma, certain types of personalities who sometimes end up in leadership and sometimes don't will take advantage of that moment to say, here's what you're doing with that. I harness your grief and I'm going to have an agenda for it. And I think it's a very disorienting experience. And so I am speaking to that.
At what point in the song, in the writing of the song, did you see that? I know sometimes songwriters go months after completing a song and go, "Oh,
Yeah. I try to always, as a first point, write from my subconscious first. And some of my editing is more precisely, uh, specifically a choice. Like, I'm going to take this in this direction because playing the song is going to make me feel this way if it says that, or whatever. Sometimes, like, Daddy Killed was just a one-off, and I was like, is this too simple? And then I recorded it a couple of different times as a demo, and I kept going back to it in two different keys. And I was like, what is the different vibe of this song? What's going on? So I went in and I looked at the guitar work. It's like, oh, one time it's in C and one time it's in F. So I decided just to connect those with a bridge and do both keys, to kind of expand it a little bit after it was a one-off and add some more depth to it, you know.
How often do you get to perform live with a band? Is that something that we can look forward to?
You can look forward to it. Kirby and Lily and I are planning some shows. We all work full time and we are each involved in numerous projects inside and outside of the music world. So it looks, I mean, we're already rehearsed with these. We're kind of looking for openers, maybe ready to go with some small shows by December. I would love to play with a band more, and it just depends on the availability of the bands that I end up collaborating with, basically.
But in the meantime, not only do we have Grace Hangs, the EP, but you have a very busy visual presence, right? You're putting out a lot of content that's being filmed, that's being made into videos all the time on YouTube. So we can find some of this material. Perhaps you with a band on a YouTube at some point.
Yeah, I graduated from UNM. I'm trying to think, is this last year or the year before? Drama Vortex, Time Space Jump. Very recently, with a bachelor's degree in interdisciplinary arts, film production, and audio technology. So I could kind of really zoom in on all of the technical aspects of how to take what I do to the next space in terms of art practice. Um, so yeah, I make a lot of videos.
Okay.
And Nicole and I have a film company, Globe Mallow Films, and we did a short DIY construction web series for one ABQ right in the beginning of the pandemic. I use music from my Los Angeles band Hello Clarice in kind of like what I pitched as a cross between Wayne's World and Bob Ross, like Joy of Painting.
Okay, so we're gonna have to find that. Instagram would be the best place. Sort of keep up with the day to day
Sure,
work.
J.M. J.M.J.music at. That's the at. You don't even say the what's after anymore. They switch the at around so often.
Of the songs that were completed for the EP. I guess we have 5.
Yeah.
Which one seemed to take on a new shape and flavor as you worked with the other musicians? Which one surprised you?
These were all very close to what I wanted when I envisioned having them exist, and everything kind of clicked into place. I would say, in terms of integrating Lily's work, Grace Hangs was one that was so stripped down in the raw way that I end up doing to begin with that we had to get very specific in our language while we were collaborating. You know, I mentioned 10 bands and I send her a solo and she mentions another 3 bands. I haven't heard of one of them. So I go and listen and I'm like, yeah, and we kind of take it in the direction it needs to go in. And Lily's like me in the way that we both just have like music pouring out of us constantly. So it was very easy to be like, here's 10 options, which do you like best? I'm like, let's mix 3 and 5, and we're done.
Right,
So
right. And she can play almost anything
Lily can play
spontaneously.
anything. Yeah. She toured as a cover band in New York for a living, playing like the entire Guns N' Roses catalog for a long time. And I was never into Guns N' Roses because Axl Rose freaks me out. But, and I was just into the more art rock bands. But I knew that the intersection of Lily and I was the sound that I wanted.
It's too soon to talk about what's next as a producer, but you said that you got what you were looking for with this project.
On this record, for sure, yeah. And also Lily works at CalArts, so she already works with Everin Golknar, who mastered it after Nick was done mixing. And I was very pleased to hear positive feedback from somebody like that. It's
Hmm.
like, okay, yes, we got it.
So does it feel like you've got a mode of work now? Because we're going back to you having no electricity and an acoustic guitar, and not entirely stable situations to live in, and trying to do this. And now you can call on these massive talents and great studios to get the work done.
Well, uh, I think a very large portion of the population of the world are struggling with these basic things. Housing and shelter and safety from violence should be everybody's right. And um, so there's me still as a working class person, saying, "Oh, I have a family to support and I have to work 7 days a week to maybe pull the ends together." So I definitely have the people I know to get this done in the right way. But the next part is you go and buy the EP, and then I can make more because I can afford to pay these professionals to do their professional stuff.
Is there any physical place where the EP will be? I mean, because normally this would be merch at a concert, but if we're not going to be able to see you until late this year or early next year, what options do we have? It'll go through a website.
Yeah, I mean, the all 5 songs of Grace Hangs will be live today on all of the Pyramid Scheme streaming services. You can go to Bandcamp and name your own price, and I'm gonna have some stickers available up there pretty soon. I just need the overhead, so
Okay.
we'll make that happen. Yeah, the body that music takes became ethereal at this specific moment, some years ago, where it was like, I have new music, but where is it? But it's kind of just available. It's here. I do have, I think, 80 something songs on iTunes, Spotify right now.
We're good.